Impumelelo Mentorship podcast is created to give you access to wisdom, to guidance, and to the kind of conversations that sparks growth. Now, in season 2, it's not just about listening. It's about learning, asking, and being part of the conversation because your voice matters. Today, I am joined by someone who's not only building bridges between generations, but is reshaping how we see the future of leadership, business, and youth engagement. He's the founder of GenLink, a strategist, a speaker, and someone deeply committed to helping young people realize that the future isn't something to fear, it's something to build. His name is Marco Stavrou. Welcome.
How many swipes do you think the average male, straight male, has to make on a dating app on a swipe right to get one in-person coffee date?
Like a Tinder.
So you obviously swipe, then you chat to get a match, then you have to
One.
chat to them. Then
One.
you have no.
One.
You think the one swipe,
Yes.
you're going to equal one date?
Yes, because that's how desperate it's become.
No. More, way more.
Really? Way more. Okay, well, I'm basing it on one, desperation, and like slight attributes that you know, and like it's painted pretty.
Way more. Try more.
Really? Like 10? More than that? What a waste.
1,000.
1,000 to get one date? No.
If you're on a dating app, the average male swipe 1,000 times right.
Yes.
Out of those, let's say 300 will match. Out of those, maybe you have a conversation on the app.
Yes.
50, then out of those, maybe you get 20 of the numbers, and out of those, maybe 10 ghost you, 5 say yes, they cancel, and you get one coffee date.
That's a full-time job. I can't.
Very difficult, right?
I can't.
I asked to meet people who care about that,
Yeah, can we talk about that, please? Because I mean, I don't know if you know, but Margot Fargo is a great friend of mine. She's very much focused in the sustainability space, but we started a business for this, and it's called Save It For You. We want to curate experiences for people to actually step out of the house and go and meet each other. Yeah, but it must be affordable because the status of
Absolutely.
The economy is very dire.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're going out at a restaurant and you're paying for a meal for 1,200 rands.
Absolutely.
So imagine you doing those on a date as a gent alone.
Well, you can't.
Like, Marco, we can't date, eh?
Let's start officially.
Awesomeness. Okay, so you made it, and thank you so much. And I think I don't know if you've watched a few episodes, because we are the baby in the industry of podcasting. And it's been a great passion of mine and dream to actually have these conversations with mentors like you who can be brutal, who can be honest, and who can kind of activate our young people to dream beyond the realm of reality. So that's why you're here. And I'm so grateful that you're here.
Thank you for having me. It's a privilege.
Awesome. So tell us, Marco, who are you? Where do you come from? Where does GenLink come from? I only know one thing that, was a stark reality to me last night when I was doing research around you. Is that I'm 20 years, well, you're 20 years old and I'm 10 years
21
old.
now.
You're 21 now, so 9 years apart. So we're 9 years apart. And it's startled me when I was like, oh my gosh, there is so much that I can learn from you and I cannot be an ageist. So tell us everything about you.
And likewise, I think that one of the biggest things that in terms of my success and just what drives me is that curiosity. So I've got so many, I don't even like the word mentor because what it does is it kind of makes it formal, but I've just got these informal people that I meet for coffee on a bi-weekly basis, monthly, quarterly, yearly, and I literally just ask them about their personal life, about their business, and that's really where it all started. So I was sitting in high school and my friend started a fidget spinner business. I don't know if you remember those fidget spinners.
Yes.
And I was like,
we had those.
Well, that's interesting. Let me look at that. And then I also started my first one as well. And then started selling sherbet, sweets.
Yes.
And then I started my first Instagram page in 2015 where I had my podcast and I was interviewing all these guests overseas. South Africans would not come on my show.
No.
Only Americans and people from overseas. This 15-year-old kid from Africa, and I would use the African card and say, I'm this 15-year-old kid, and please help me, and give me a time. And those were my first mentors. And podcasts played such a pivotal role in who I am today because it gave me access. I needed access and exposure.
Yeah.
And so that's where it all started. And I left high school at the age of 17 and was doing Cambridge and matriculated through Cambridge. And then I started at Henley Business School at the age of 17.
Okay.
And that's an amazing story how I got in there was that I emailed the person who was the manager of the portfolio of the academic curriculum that I was doing.
Okay.
And they were like, absolutely not.
Really?
You are too young, too inexperienced. So what did I do? I stalked the dean on Instagram. He had like a family account. He had hardly any followers. And I sent him a voice and I said, so-and-so, I'm Marco. I've got this podcast and I'd love to interview you. And I didn't even mention the Henley experience.
Okay.
I interviewed him. At the end of the interview, I said, by the way, I tried to speak to so-and-so. And they said, I'm too young. He picked up the phone, he called her, and on the call offered me a scholarship.
Oh my word. Just like that.
Just like that. And I think that's a story that represents me.
Yeah.
I'm someone who doesn't take no for an answer and that always looks to say, what is your biggest need and how can I add value to you and bridge that.
And I love that you connected all the dots. Sadly, no South African came to your podcast. Yeah, but with us, it's kind of like you have to build the trust. You have to oversell yourself.
Have a brand.
Yeah, have a brand, have this exposure. But and like I'm really inspired by that journey. Like just take the leap and go for it. And Marco, it brings me to the question of that mental crippling, right? You were steadfast in going ahead with it and trusting that you're going to take the step, you're going to take the leap, and you're going to reach out to the people that are going to, equip you for a successful future for you. And I find that a lot of our young people don't necessarily have that naturally unlocked. And I think it's the circumstance. It could be many other facets that contribute to that crippling. So for you, how did you then shift that mindset? Even though it's always been there, at times maybe it's not. Yeah. So how do you learn, shift that mindset?
So I always say that belief becomes before action. So you have to have the belief before you start to act. Unfortunately, where we live, in specifically in South African context, 50% of marriages end in divorce. We've got fatherless children, 26 million. I think I posted recently on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I saw that post.
Yeah, that don't have fathers. And so I think that's where it starts. It starts in the home. I've been so blessed to have such an amazing parents and family, and my grandparents inspired me as well as entrepreneurs who came from Greece with absolutely nothing. And that's where that nature and nurture. So naturally, it came easy to me to, just voice out and go for things. But then also I was nurtured in a way where just because you're a child at the adult's table, you can still have a voice.
Yes. Yeah.
You can still believe in yourself and do things. And kind of that sense of naivety and entitlement to say, I can do it, And the more you do it, the more confident you get.
Yeah.
So every small win created this confidence to go bigger and to think bigger and to do bigger and to have a bigger voice. And it was really, really tough.
Yeah.
It was really tough to be judged by my friends and my community to say, you're too young.
Yeah.
You're not experienced. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You don't have the resources. Why would they listen to you? Why would they pay your stuff? Even today, people say to me, why would we use you? Or why would we invest in you? Or why would we take investment from you? And so it's constantly breaking that, and it starts with yourself.
And now you're speaking about that divide.
Yes.
And that's basically what GenLink is about,
Absolutely.
bridging that divide. So tell us more about that. Now you found this discovery and you've made this your baby.
Yeah.
You're the Gen Z guy.
I am the claimed Gen Z guy. You see, it comes back to the belief. I claimed it. No, it was such an interesting story. So it all came out of necessity.
Okay.
The market told me. And I always say to young aspiring entrepreneurs, I say, you don't decide if you're valuable, the market decides. And what I mean by that is, I was at a Standard Bank event as a client, and the lady came up to me. We connected, one of the executives, and I said, can I interview on my podcast and my publication? And I interviewed, and she was so impressed by that. She WhatsApp messaged me and said, we need you because we're struggling to connect to our clients. So we set up a meeting, and I basically pitched them to say, I can help you from a strategy and consulting point of view to actually reach your clients. And that's what made me form Stavrou Consulting as a PTY Limited, and actually made me start the process of getting into the space. So it was out of the market telling, not because I thought so. And I think it's an important lesson. And so that started the momentum of me then working with all these corporates and organizations. I've worked with universities, with different companies, different organizations. And then last year, I managed to find some incredible investors, and they said to me, Marco, look, you've got to change the branding from Stavrou Consulting to GenLink so we can potentially exit. And so then I raised that money, and they gave me incredible office and resources, and basically it's going strength from there.
Oh my word! Listen to that. It just comes together. All the stars align, eh? It's.
And on that point, quickly,
Yeah.
I read an incredible book. Everyone should go read. It's called Why Greatness Can't Be Planned.
Ah. Why
And if you
greatness?
think about that for a moment, the best things in your life, and you can say this to be true as well, is you didn't intentionally always think about, I'm going to do this and it's going to do this and it's going to do that. No, you were just out there doing incredible work, being a good person, and things kind of fall into play and the right things came and the wrong doors weren't open. And I found that to be so true in my life to say that sometimes don't have too much urgency and intention. Just let your world open and just put yourself out there, which I think a lot of young people don't do. They sit at home playing video games on social media, isolating themselves, and nothing good can really come from that.
And Marco, you touch on something so profound there where you say you have to trust the process, but also maybe the wrong doors or the right doors may open, right? And now this is when it comes to your investors, the resources that you get, how do you open the door of vulnerability yet being trusting that, this is the right door that's opening? Or do you just have to kind of, just brace yourself for what's to come?
So with all my investors and my clients and even those podcasts, I always look at the person.
Okay.
Versus so the opportunity cost is this person an amazing human being, an integrous human being, someone that I would want to be a friend with, that I want to do life with, versus what are they buying or giving me? And sometimes we can be so attracted to the money and the success and the resources versus actually who are you partnering with? And so luckily for me with my investors, I was actually they were a client of mine for like almost 2 years. And I met their family and their friends, and I asked people in the industry about them, and not a bad word about them. So I always look at the human being first, even when choosing clients. Some clients aren't the right clients.
Yeah, that's true. You just got to trust. But you got to interrogate.
You got to interrogate.
You got to interrogate
and have that intuition to say, is this a good human being?
Yeah.
Do they say what they're gonna do? Do they go over and beyond, or do they underdeliver?
Yeah.
And so I looked at that, and then obviously went to my council of advisory board and people in my space and said, what are these the term sheets? What do you think? And then, like you said, take a leap of faith.
Take the leap of faith. And now, for me, it feels like you've got the framework. You've got where to start, identify the gap, what resources to use, how do I allocate, and then build the business. And now, Stavrou Consulting. So I'm here thinking, I'm in grade 11.
Yeah.
I'm 17. I'm just reflecting on your story of leaving and then going to Cambridge and finishing your matric. And I'm thinking to myself, what is the first step that I take in identifying what's that one distinctive thing that I'm going to bring to an environment? So does it have to be too big? Does it have to be small? Like, how do I start with this framework that you've outlined for yourself?
So I think before I share quickly, I think we got to be patient. And even myself, I'm constantly, in fact, every day I get older, literally every day, I think more long term. And I realize that it doesn't have to happen right at this moment. And I think that's really important for young people, because sometimes we want to get a promotion right now, or we see like social media and everyone's best life and doing all these things. I always say like LinkedIn is just a depiction of success.
Yeah.
It never shows it never shows the failures. It never shows the struggles.
Yeah.
And so be careful not to get caught in that. Now, I always like to reference Kylie Jenner as an example.
Yes.
Kylie Jenner had an incredible mother who was a business genius and gave her resources. And sometimes we think, oh, she did it all on her own. Not at all. And I'm also a product of my parents, of my community, of my investors, of all the people around me. And that's why I don't believe in, self-made. Just the word self-made, I don't think exists. And so that's the first thing is be patient. It takes time. Not everyone's going to be lucky and kind of, I was very blessed in the sense that I found it so quickly.
Yeah.
But I don't think that necessarily is going to be everyone, and be okay with that. And a comparison is a thief of joy. That is such a true statement to say the more we compare ourselves to other people, it takes away from our purpose and our unique identity and what we've been called to do. And so I think that's an important message. And then secondly, learning. So you've got to start learning, whether that's podcasts or books or events in any space, whether you love makeup or you love sports or you love, baking. I think just be curious and start learning. But then the second thing is action. You cannot be at home. You have to just do things.
Yeah. Just start
and do it.
Make, investigate, research. I agree.
And for me, after spending time with the most successful business people and performers and artists, they all don't know what they're doing. They're all figuring it out.
I always get shocked at that. We're all figuring it out.
We're all figuring it
the
out
day.
every single day. And I've met some of these wealthy people who one day they'll be 9 billion rand in debt.
Yes.
And the next day they'll be worth 30 billion.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
And you think, oh, they're so successful, they got everything worked out. They don't. And that's okay if you don't.
Yeah.
And so I think that just do things, put yourself out there. If you don't like the job and you leave after 2 years, it's okay.
Yeah, 100%.
The job doesn't control you. If you fail in that job, your life's not over.
You'll probably find something else that's better for you. Yeah.
It'll probably be better.
100%.
Because I do believe in you must love what you do. You must have passion for it. But if you don't, that's also okay. You've got time to figure that out.
Yeah. But Marco, it's also, I can imagine, entrepreneurship is a lonely journey. I've traveled that path. And I think I was about 19 when I started my first business. Amazing. It was a promotional business. And it was very lonely. But at the time, remember, I'm a millennial, and I think our generational gap can also attest to the mentorship I had at the time and potentially the mentorship you have now. I think a lot has evolved. There's a lot of optimism and there's a lot of trust now in believing that, this generation is quite agile and we're moving forward. But I know that our young people, the Gen Zs, are facing a lot of loneliness, especially in their current journeys, being lost,
absolutely,
uncertainty. So from your perspective with GenLink, how do we then couple that with ensuring that we support this generation?
So 1 in 7 males under 40 don't have a close friend. The average American male's got 1 friend.
Yeah.
So it's African context, 1 in 7 don't have a friend.
I'm doing the math. Okay.
So if you meet someone and 1 in 7 don't have a friend, close friend. And we've seen such a increase in mental health issues. So depression, anxiety, and I always give this stat. What happened was there was the great rewiring. So from 2010 to 2015, social media, smartphones, and overprotective parenting changed the way children actually engage with the world. And so then they stopped going out, they started isolating themselves, they started struggling with anxiety and depression, self-esteem, not seeing their friends on a weekly basis in person. Now the average, I think, is like 27 minutes a day that a young person will spend time outside of outside of school, with a friend. And Roblox and all these
loves that.
Roblox and these devices. The average young person spends 3.5 hours on social media, just on social media. So not TV, not Netflix,
just social media,
just social media on their phone. 7 hours a day on their phone as well.
Consumption.
It's a huge distraction on attention, and unfortunately, it's a false perception of connection. So we think we connect because we're seeing people's story. No, we're not.
Yeah.
Because you really are connected when you can be vulnerable with someone and you actually deal with hardship and you go through tough things together. That is connection.
Yeah.
And so I think across the board, globally and South Africa, we're seeing a decrease, and that's where like running clubs and paddle and pickleball.
Yeah, I can't make time with you because you guys always playing
pickleball.
Please tell Kaya he's next on the podcast. We just need an hour. That's it.
They absolutely love it, and it's been so good for all of us.
Invite me
in terms of community. Absolutely. It's a very social thing. That's what I love about it. It's one of the things where you don't have to be technically inclined. You don't have to be a high performance athlete.
Yes.
It can be anyone. And like this weekend, I was playing with Anele, and
I saw your picture. You were like with the elites of South Africa. So it was you, Anele, Trevor, and one other person.
That's the fiance, Baza.
Baza, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not, pickleball wasn't elite, I can tell you that.
Well, Marco, birds of a feather. They flock together. And I do believe that. I think having the right environment is very important. The right environment. And so to your point as well, having to kind of break down your time and allocate it wisely is very, very important. So for instance, having time with roadblocks, going outside, it just generates a different plasticity where you can be more creative. You can start to see, what is it that I can improve in the world around me? And that can be something, But now, Marco, the idea of all of us being entrepreneurs,
yes,
especially your generation, can we dive into that, please?
Sure.
Honestly, I know we're not all made for it, but how do we then potentially use the skill of entrepreneurship and apply it in a day-to-day? If I'm meant to be a doctor, if I'm meant to be a psychologist, if I'm meant to be a corporate girly or gent.
So I do believe that we can all have fulfilling jobs and meaningful lives. And so whether that means you've got a side hustle or a side income, every single person in the workspace is working on something on the side, whether they admit it to their boss or not. And so the realization that, number one, your corporate job or your work isn't everything. And two, you can work for an NGO or have a sports passion or do something on the side that really fulfills you. And you can find work in a corporate space. Because I think there's this, what's been sold is this dream that entrepreneurship is far greater.
Yes.
That you're a better person, that you're more successful if you run your own business. I mean, a lot of young people get caught in that trap. Do you think, oh, if I'm not an entrepreneur, or if I don't have financial freedom and success, and if I don't have a big community and a brand, then I'm perceived as less than. And that's a total lie, because we all have been called to unique spaces. And if everyone's an entrepreneur, then who's going to make an impact in those environments? So I think we need to be careful. With that being said, the world has changed with globalization and the internet and AI, where we as young people have access to so much more. So I always tell corporates is, we've got more options than our parents.
Yes.
And so to say that, oh no, you must work for a job for 10 years or this, for the same career for 30 years, I think that's a bit naive, because the world's offering us so much. So we're competing on a global scale in terms of what we can and can't do. And I think there's more. I mean, I'm a perfect example of, at 21 years old, you can have a business, you can connect with people, you can have a brand, you can have an impact. Whereas before, you would need to be minimum like 40 to even have a voice in the country.
Yeah, just a senior role. Or like 50,
Absolutely. So I think that has changed and the world has changed. And it's moving so fast where young people are saying, I'm not going to wait for my parents. I'm not going to wait for society. I'm going to create my own future.
Yeah. And Marco, now that I've got you, I want to ask a question maybe most corporates would love to ask, is understanding this generation.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like we've got a very stringent perception, sometimes unfair. I want a promotion very soon.
Entitled.
Entitled and uncertain and confused and not willing to work the 8 hours. So how do corporates potentially better understand this generation without the assumption of what they are?
I think a lot of corporates, look, there are corporates that do it well, I just came from a meeting from Investec, and a lot of their talent, they love it. They get paid well, they feel like they're growing in their career, they feel like they're being pushed in a positive way. So I don't think it's all bad. And I also don't think that everything Gen Z says corporates must do. Because there is this age of wisdom and experience that is super valuable. And a lot of young people just don't know what they don't know. And so I'm always in the balance and saying, okay, cool, there's this unique voice and there's this change of world. Let's add to what you guys are already doing and not just take away. And that being said, I think humanizing the experience. So really looking at, like with COVID, the world stopped.
Yeah.
The world paused. And people realized of all ages that family and friends and relationships and health is the most important thing. And so just valuing that to say, okay, cool. How do we offer young people an experience where they can be flexible? They can do rotations within the grad programs. They can live in Cape Town and London and change. It's okay if they got an emergency and they need to leave early. So things like that were much more stringent and strict can be a little bit more flexible. And then I think the relationships, we cannot lose the essence of, just because you're working from a computer or Zoom in this high performance, doesn't mean you're not connected, and doesn't mean we shouldn't be connected. So allocate time. And I've got a lot of older people say to me, well, we've got all these programs, but young people aren't engaging with them. Or number one, do they know about them? Because a lot of corporates don't post about them on TikTok, don't post about them on LinkedIn, or trying to go through email. If you ever try to contact a young person through email, it doesn't work. So
WhatsApp.
You've got to use WhatsApp and text message and social media as these communication channels. And then like figuring out what their incentive is, because each human being is incentivized by something totally unique. And if you don't spend that time, and a lot of young people don't know themselves. And so that's where like psychometric testing and really reflection and journaling come in. And I think schools rush us and pressure us into these spaces where at 18 years old, you're not supposed to know what you want to do.
Oh, let's not get into the school discussion.
And it's okay. If you become a CA and you want to change, or if you're not an actuary, if you're not academic, that's okay. There's a world that offers, that caters to who you are.
Yeah. Marco, the school conversation here is one for another day. We'll have it over coffee. We'll ask our production team to sit there and record for us. Yeah, I think the education system, there's lots of work to be done, and I think we can really help them there a lot. But the day they call us, we'll be ready.
And we're going to do our job. If the government, if society doesn't come on board, we'll do our small part, which starts right here and right now.
And we need to.
And a lot of young people have got that belief. And just because my parents or the world doesn't cater to my environment and to my world, I will create my own world. And that's just the consensus and around the world to say, we don't agree with certain things, and we're going to make our own way and be the change we want to see.
Absolutely.
And so I'm a lot of people ask me, do you feel like you want to stay in South Africa? You can go anywhere in the world. Yeah. And I'm so excited about South Africa because I look at how I was brought up in schools. I didn't see color.
Yeah.
Color wasn't a thing for me. We never spoke about that, I'm not afraid of a bigot at a robot. I see them as a human being,
100%.
And so there's this change of mindset that's happened. There's this unity and collaboration that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that it's so powerful. And that's something that I've learned through my investors is that collaboration is so much more powerful than competition.
100%. Oh, I couldn't agree more. It's about that time. We're being aggressive. We're already seeing it with you, eh? So we're following suit.
I hope so.
We are following suit.
And I also want to just say, I'm offering my time and energy. I always, when I speak on stage, I say, here's my email address. Here, can reach out to me because I didn't have those people. It took me so long to find people that say, I'll give you time of day.
I hear you.
So, yeah.
Okay. And now, Marco, when those people do reach out to you, just in closing, what is the one thing that's going to make them outstanding and that's going to say, okay, yes, I can dedicate my time? I know a lot of our mentors struggle with finding the capacity and the time, even though they really are wanting to and are willing to, So how do we then say, even though you're wanting to come to me, come with me with a solid plan,
absolutely,
structured idea of what you want, why am I relatable to, and why am I a suitable mentor? So what do you look for that's outstanding?
So I look for people who've done the work. So what I did was I always try to post even what I was learning about in the beginning. Once I didn't have the portfolio of work, I just shared about my thoughts on certain topics. Anyone can go to my social media and say, this person has actually executed. Yes. They've done stuff. They've gone for it. And that's the first thing I'll do is I'll go into their social media. I'll go into who they are and see, has this person actually taken the time to try and give it a go? Yes. So that's the first thing I look for. Okay. And then the positioning around the messages, you always want a message to add value. So whether that's saying to me, oh, I know so-and-so, and, you create that bridge between that referral and that trust. And I always try and do that with my messages to see who does this person know that I know. And the second part is, how can I add value to them and not just take? So people will say to me, Marco, can I take you out for coffee? And I'm like, okay, cool. What do you want to discuss? Or how can I help you even? Even half the time, young people don't even know what they need help with.
Sheesh.
So at least go into the email and say, I need help with so-and-so and so I'm doing these things. And I'll be absolutely.
And that's where we can
start. And now we can start in point, even a podcast. Podcast is a brilliant way because what you're doing is you're adding value to my life by saying, I want to give you a platform. I'm interested in you. I'm adding value to you by saying, let's have a conversation. There may be a guest.
Yeah,
and so I sort of, that's one best way a podcast is or any show is you really can get people's time through that.
Hundreds. I am so with you. And there's so many nuggets of wisdom. One person just says one thing and you're like, Google, there we go.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, please do.
What would be your advice to your 21-year-old self?
Oh my. It will all work out. Yeah. I mean, I'm like 9 years older now and I'm thinking, sheesh, all the things. And I keep reiterating it. I think it was Jay Shetty who said this, and he said, you are currently living the dream that you once dreamt of. And it really, really, I can attest, that it does come together at some point,
I think it's so hard in the moment, specifically if you don't have finances.
Yes.
So if you're under big financial pressure and if your head's against the wall and you need to provide for your family, it's really tough. And that's why I think there's no better time than when you're young.
Absolutely.
And you don't have a family, you don't have huge kind of costs and risk to take that leap of faith and to go for it. So if you're listening to this right now and you're on the bridge of starting something or starting a new job or going for it, this is a sign to do it.
Just do it.
Because there's no better timing than the present. And you will figure it out, and you might even fail.
Oh, I went.
In fact, you will fail.
Many times.
Not you might, you will fail.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because your world's not going to end. People are not going to just stop working with you. And in fact, people want to work with you more because you've actually done something and you've given it a go. And so that would be my final closing thoughts.
I think the legacy has definitely been drawn out. If anything ever happens, Marco is going to take over Impumelelo Mentorship. They've signed the contract. I mean, you put me in a position where I'm like, oh my word, I'm answering questions. But thank you so much. I think you have left us with such valuable insights. And, Marco, I want to see you excel. I want to see you grow. Touching more hearts.
Likewise.
And empowering our young people. They need it. And we need them to be empowered and inspired so that we can excel as a country and grow.
And there's also a lot of amazing young people. So thank you for giving them a platform, because we need the next generation to give young people a platform and to believe in them and to invest in them, not just with their words, but with their money. And so that's what I really believe in my life's mission and purpose, is to not only help successful people become more fulfilled, but to help the next generation of entrepreneurs by actually investing time, energy, and money. And sometimes time and energy is more of a cost than money.
100%.
So like, for example, once a month, I will go and meet with a beggar, or I've got someone, a barista, that I take out and I sit with them and I say, just vent. Just tell me your life's problems and challenges. How can I connect with you? Because sometimes that's much harder than just donating to a charity.
Yeah, that's true. And you have a meal. The best way to know someone is by dining with them.
Absolutely.
So there we go. Thank you, Marco.
Thank you, everyone.